and Heisman Trophy odds.
Yeah, it was the Dillon Gabriel got the bump, right?
He's moved past Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. It's atypical July change for college football's highest honors. I'll tell you this. You don't want to be the favorite for the Heisman Trophy because generally when you're the favorite for the Heisman Trophy, you don't
find
win.
a reason. Yeah, they find a reason to kind of bring you back to the pack.
Yeah, Dillon Gabriel is then Carson Beck, then Quinn Ewers, then Jackson Dart, then Will Howard at Ohio State, then the Tennessee kid, Jalen Milroe, Garrett Nussmeier, Cam Ward, Connor Wiegman. So those are your favorites. Let's see. What do they all have in common? Oh, they're all quarterbacks.
All right. That's because, that's who wins it.
Can there ever be an offensive lineman winning the Heisman?
No, of course not. Yeah.
No way.
No such person exists. Unless some 7 foot, 400 pound, 4'4", 40.
Georgia got one of those over the weekend.
Yeah.
What if it was a guy who was like a 2-time All-American?
Nope.
He gives up had a Baselli-like legend about him in terms of how Baselli wasn't here in the NFL.
No.
It's a headline if he gives up a sack.
The guy who also, by the way, happens to be the biggest draft bust ever, but there's only been one offensive lineman really in our life who's commanded that, and he was nowhere near winning the Heisman. That was Mandrich.
Yeah.
That's the only old lineman. He had it. He had like the pub. He had the, All
right, how about another position?
Yeah, other positions.
Yeah.
I think the question you asked is defense, and it's still right. Only happened once with Woodson.
Has it only happened one time?
Or if that weren't the first, it was the first in a long time when Woodson won.
Right?
I think it's the only time the
Let's
defense has
look
won.
real quick here. It'll be fun to see. And
so I guess that's where you look. There are other positions.
Daniels, Williams, Young, Devontae Smith in 2020 was a wide receiver. Burrow, Murray, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry won as a running back. Mariota, Winston, Manziel, Griffin, Cam, Mark Ingram won as a running back. Bradford, Tebow, Troy Smith, Reggie Bush won as a running back. Quarterbacks and running backs.
I hadn't been a ton of
corner.
Actually, has a receiver ever won?
Yeah, Devontae Smith won it.
See the
Tim
first?
Brown won it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What am I talking about? Rocket.
Desmond Howard won it.
Did Rocket win it?
Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders won it. I'm just looking if there's any other defense. He might be the only defensive player ever. Johnny Rodgers won it as a wide receiver.
I think Woodson was the only one.
Yeah.
So I think if you're talking about looking for an outlier, it would have
what about Alan the Horse Amici, a fullback for Whiskey?
Mm-hmm.
He won it.
And so began the
tight end
legacy of running back.
Leon Hart.
Wow.
Leon Hart won it.
I think Brock Bowers, if he stayed healthy, would have had a chance.
Larry Kelly, the second winner ever from Yale. Yale went back-to-back in 36 and 37. Yeah. Like to see you give them some respect.
It reminds me of the phrase, the game has changed.
The game has changed. Then Davey O'Brien won it at TCU, and the rest is history. So, only one defensive player. How about that? Can a defensive player win the Heisman Trophy, I guess, is the next question as we go into 2024 with the way the offenses are now? I don't know. The numbers that these boys put up nowadays. I mean, remember what Mac Jones did, and he didn't win. They gave it Mac Jones threw like 41.
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, 41-4.
Yeah. Sometimes too many quarterbacks have won the Heisman because they're throwing to 2 or 3 great receivers.
Yeah, that happened.
That's too many. So I have no
Joe
problem.
Joe Burrow threw to great receivers, and
he
did.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen since the difference in those two.
Yeah. So it's fun. Anyway, we'll see which quarterback wins it this year, I guess.
Do you have a favorite?
No, I don't. I like to see it. Like I'd take off the top. Now look, I was talking about this the other day. The expectations put on Carson Beck's shoulders are as high as anyone that there can be. There can't be any more expectation. He is supposed to lead Georgia to an undefeated national championship.
Mm-hmm.
He is supposed to win the Heisman Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
He is supposed to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. What else could there be?
What odds would you? I mean, you wouldn't have to give me huge odds to play that. I think those 3 things. I don't know. I think that
I would go against it just because it's next to impossible.
The fact that you're talking about a person who could,
how can you do that?
He could legitimately do that. That could legitimately be done. First of all, he really only has to do one of those, and all 3 will happen.
Well,
if he leads Georgia to an undefeated national title, he'll win the Heisman, and he'll be the number 1 pick. So he really only has to do that one. And he can. There's also the potential that he doesn't do that and still wins all 3. But if Georgia goes undefeated and wins the Natty, I would think that Beck would be the Heisman winner and then the number 1 pick.
He completed 72% of his passes last year, 302 of 417 for 3,941 yards. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Again, he did not have a ton of touchdowns. If he had the same numbers, that won't get you the Heisman.
Probably bigger numbers this year, though, wouldn't you think?
That would not get you the Heisman.
Probably not.
Even if they're undefeated. I'm going to tell you why, because there's somebody else who's going to play the game with 42 touchdowns.
Maybe.
And he doesn't run, so that doesn't add to it, Jeff.
Maybe that's incumbent on you Heisman voters to kind of to rectify that.
I don't like what you just did there.
Well, because here's the reality is this. If Carson Beck, say, only throws 28 touchdowns.
You Heisman voters. I felt like that was.
If Carson Beck only throws 28 touchdowns and they win the national championship, he only has 2 picks or whatever, and they win the Natty, then I think at some point you ought to be able to juxtapose and say, well, you know what? If Carson Beck were playing for his old.
It's going to be, I'll tell you this.
They played for Oregon, heid have 50 touchdowns.
I'll tell you this. This will be interesting. The playoffs are longer now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be voting on the Heisman merely as a regular season, and then somebody takes off in the playoffs, they definitely will not be Heisman eligible.
Well, you know, I would like the Heisman to be in the middle of January every year. I'd like for you to consider everything.
That will be
honest.
Interesting.
But especially now with a playoff, that's fair. It's not quite as long if you're a top 4 seed. It's only an 18 playoff. I'm going to say
this, and this is not against Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck has a better chance of being the first overall pick than winning the Heisman because of the way he plays. How about that?
I don't know
Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do hear what you're saying, but I look at what Georgia's, tell me what Stetson Bennett threw, Dan.
Did he win the Heisman?
No, my point is whatever Stetson Bennett threw, Beck will do better. Find me Bennett's best year.
But stand by. But before we do that,
didn't Stetson Bennett go to the Heisman finals?
Hang on.
Okay.
Jaden Daniels, last year, the Heisman Trophy winner, 40-4.
Yeah.
Okay. On top of 1,134 rushing yards and 10 more rushing touchdowns.
Outstanding statistical year, but that was last year. We're talking about who's going to win it this year.
But I'm telling you, someone will do that this year.
And I guess what the question that has to be asked, and you can't do it in sports, it's impossible. We do it all the time, whether you're talking about GOAT
but you're going to ask it.
But yeah, the question is this. Okay, let's say this year that's Dillon Gabriel.
Here's Stetson Bennett, by the way. 68%. Carson had 72.
Just want the touchdown numbers only.
27-7 and 29-7.
So yeah, 30. That's probably what he'll do.
Kind of what they do at
That's
Georgia.
what they do. That's right. He probably won't be much more than 30. So the question you have to ask yourself is this. Let's say Dillon Gabriel is 11-1, has Bo Nix's numbers.
Right.
Okay? And then Carson Beck has 30 touchdowns, 4 picks, and goes undefeated, and they're number 1 in the country.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You have to ask yourself, if Carson Beck were at Oregon, would he have 40 touchdowns, 4 picks?
Right.
And at the same time, if Dillon Gabriel were at Georgia, would they be undefeated at number 1? And those questions aren't like
hypothesis.
That's right. They're not definite answers. And when you vote before it's over, you have to do that even more though. That's why I'd like to see.
I will say this: Oregon will get better tested. A little Big Ten in there, right? Now Oregon plays.
I am not on board this Oregon love right now. You see him number 1 in some of the polls.
No. Really?
Yes. Oh. Oregon's top 3 or 5 in every preseason poll, Dan. Okay.
I loved Lanning.
They do, and he's done a great job.
He has done a great job.
He's done a great job. He didn't take over some, ready-made.
How is Dillon Gabriel?
He's like on his 5th school, isn't he?
This is what's wrong with college football.
Started at UCF.
So he's 3 years at UCF. 2 years at Oklahoma, and now 1 year for Oregon. What are we doing, man?
Didn't he not go to USC at one point?
No, and he's making and by the way, making some serious cash money too now.
Collecting checks.
Yeah. I guess.
Oh no, I guess. Hell yeah, he's making money.
Orlando Pace, was he a Heisman finalist? Getting another O-line vote
think
there.
He was.
I'm just talking about the kind of hype that wins the Heisman. Yeah. Mandarich is the only O-lineman of my life.
That's fair. We got to take a break. We'll keep it rolling.
I got a couple of speed traps I want to get out before we do that. Brought to you by Catlin Truck Accessories. We got one, speed trap Merrill Road, heading towards the Wonderwood Mayport Expressway there. And then another one leaving Beach on Atlantic at the Intercoastal Bridge. So if you're coming, I guess that will be west over the Intercoastal on Atlantic, speed trap there as well. Both brought to you by Catlin Truck Accessories. It's the Monday Morning Quarterback, divorcemenonly.com.